Hi, I'm Lachlan from Kashy, and it's too hot to work outside today, so I thought I'd show you a couple of parts about an engine on this old project car. While this motor is pretty old, it's actually out of a 78 Volvo, a lot of these systems kind of similar to a modern car as well, such as the water pump, power steering pump, AC compressor, and the alternator down there. But today we're going to talk about the starter motor. This big old lump of metal is called a starter motor, and its job is to turn the motor over fast enough that the engine starts. These starter motors are actually a pretty simple system. Electricity comes from the battery into the solenoid at the top, goes all the way through the motor, and throws this little tiny gear out and spins it up so it turns the engine in your car over. Because of how big this electric motor is, it actually takes a large amount of power away from the battery when it starts the car. Which is why if you've got a slightly dead battery, sometimes the car won't turn over at all. However, it's not the only reason that these starter motors fail. Because of the size of the electric motor and the amount of current running through it from the battery, over time they begin to wear out, and things like this solenoid or this motor itself can fail. As mechanics, we've actually got a couple of good ways of testing these starter motors. And the first one is by listening to it. For example, if you turn the key and you just hear a whirring noise, but the engine doesn't turn over, there's a fair chance that this electric motor is fine, and it's just that this solenoid isn't pushing the gear out. On the other hand, if you don't hear any whirring noise, but you just hear a heavy thunk, then there is a fair chance that this solenoid is throwing the gear out, and the electric motor isn't turning it. Most of the time, these starter motors are mounted low and on the rear of the engine, sort of in this area, which is why they are sometimes a real pain in the ass to change. So is there any way to prolong the life of the starter motor? Well, there's really only one, which is to stop turning the car over for so long. Extended cranking times and leaving the key turned to the start position once the engine is started can cause a lot of damage, A, to the motor and B, to the gear itself. Because of the size of the electric motor and what it's trying to turn over, extended cranking times cause them to overheat quite quickly. That's a little bit more about the starter motor on most cars. Thanks again, I'm Lachlan from Kashy.